Good morning, everyone. Ministers, Excellencies, peacekeeping colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you here this morning for this event, organized by UN Women and co-hosted with Canada, to launch the second programming round of the Elsie Initiative Fund for uniformed women in peace operations. The goal of increasing the number of uniformed women in peacekeeping is central to the Women, Peace and Security agenda that is now 21 years old. It is a right that every woman should have an equal opportunity to serve and protect. And while we should not need to justify the business case, we do know that when women serve in peacekeeping, they increase the credibility of efforts among the communities they serve, strengthen outreach and protection, and diversify the information needed for decision making. And yet the number of women in uniform in peacekeeping remains low. This is why I am particularly excited for this event today to hear more about the Elsie Initiative, one of the most innovative partnerships that we have globally to support and incentivize an increase in the number of uniformed women in UN peace operations. The issue of gender parity has been a priority for this Secretary General since coming into office. The number of women in leadership positions on the civilian side of peacekeeping is now at its highest levels ever. The Uniform Gender Parity Strategy of the Department of Peace Operations is setting targets and coordinating efforts to increase that number on the uniform side as well. But more is needed, both in peacekeeping and in the pace of change in national militaries globally. And this is where the Elsie Initiative has such an important role to play. This morning, we will hear from member states who received funding in the first round and 2 award-winning women peacekeepers from the military and police on their experiences. We will also hear from member states who are either new contributors to the fund or who have made additional contributions to this fund since its launch in March 2019. Before we begin, just some brief housekeeping issues. I request all of you who will be taking the floor in the course of this morning to please adhere to the time restrictions that were provided. We have a lot to cover this morning and we really want to ensure that we hear from everyone. Please, when you are not speaking, if you can mute your microphone to avoid any feedback. Also, we welcome you and in fact encourage you to tweet during this event. If you are tweeting, the Elsie Initiative Fund's Twitter address to tag is @ElsieFund. And lastly, for interpretation, as you would have seen in the chat box, please click on the interpretation feature at the bottom right of your screen. We have simultaneous translation in French, Spanish, and Arabic. I would now like to kick things off and introduce to you to provide opening remarks the United Nations Under-Secretary General for the Department of Peace Operations, USG Lacroix. USG, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nahla, and good morning, Excellencies, distinguished guests, panelists. First of all, I would like to thank the Government of Canada for organizing this high-level event for the second programming round of the Elsie Initiative Fund. It is really a pleasure to be here today among such distinguished colleagues, friends, and supporters. It is particularly warming to see that there is so much support for the Elsie Initiative, and I'm particularly glad to be joined by colleagues from UN Women, as well as 2 colleagues, distinguished women peacekeepers from the field. I look forward to hearing from all of you. The Elsie Initiative is an innovative initiative that has been crucial in helping us accelerate progress to achieve our uniform gender parity targets. The Department of Peace Operations is closely collaborating with the Elsie Fund, including in its capacity as a member of the Fund's steering committee. And I'm pleased to say that DPO will continue to do so in this new phase. Increasing the participation of uniformed women in UN peace operations is a key priority for all of us, and certainly it is a key priority for DPO. It is one of our key commitments to implement the Women, Peace and Security agenda under the Secretary General's Action for Peacekeeping initiative, and will remain a priority in the next phase of A4P+. One way of promoting women's participation in peace operation is by recognizing women's contributions in the different roles and positions in which they currently serve in our missions. This includes steering public discourse away from the discussion on, and I quote, women's added value, a discussion that often places a burden on justification of women, and indeed it seems to be questioning the reality, which is that women can fill any position in peacekeeping as well or better than men, which is what we see every single day in our field mission. Consequently, the reason why we, and all of us here today, are so invested in this topic is that to improve the way we operate, it is crucial to have diverse teams in which both women and men can contribute to their skills, experiences, and perspectives to the fullest. And I would add an environment in which both women and men can feel comfortable, a welcoming work environment for everyone, which is a major condition for our success in delivering our mandates. When our operations reflect the diversity of the communities we serve, we are more successful at building trust with them and at understanding the different security needs of the men, women, boys, and girls that are part of these communities. Needless to say, this is critical for the protection of civilians and for mandate implementation as a whole. Since the launch of the Uniform Gender Parity Strategy in 2018, I think we've made good progress in meeting the targets of the strategy, but of course, we need to do more. From 2018 to 2021, the number of women staff officers and military observers has increased from 12.3% to 17.8%. The number of women individual police officers from 22.3% to 30.4%, that is almost a third of them. A third of IPOs are currently women. And the number of women in formed police units from 9 to 14.8%. And apologies for inflicting on you all these numbers, but this is just to suggest that we're really moving forward in achieving and in many cases surpassing the objectives that we set for ourselves. Progress, however, has traditionally remained slow for military contingents. Currently, we have only 5.4% of women in contingents, which is an increase from 3.9% in 2018. And of course, given the high number of personnel in the formed military contingent, the number in absolute, in value, the increase is relatively significant. However, we must do more, and particularly when it comes to military contingents, we do expect to see an increase in this area due to a new requirement that we have introduced, which is that we ask that all infantry units will be deployed with engagement platoons that have a minimum of 50% women. So hopefully that will trigger further increase in the category of military contingents. We have also made progress at the uniform senior leadership level. For military components, currently there are 3 women serving in the most senior military positions, 1 force commander and 2 deputy force commanders, and we intend to do more moving forward. And on the police side, 2 women currently serve as heads of police components, and 3 more will take up these positions soon, meaning that we will be very soon at a total of 5 women heads of police components. This is a record number of women serving in these leadership positions. But increasing the number of women deployed is not enough. We need to transform our institutions and the way we do things to ensure that women can participate and contribute fully as part of our peace operations. And the Elsie Initiative has been an essential partner in providing support and resources to achieve this goal, both to troop and police contributing countries and to UN-led initiatives. For example, in the framework of the Elsie Initiative project for field missions, facilities, and infrastructures, DPO has worked closely with our colleagues in the Department of Operational Support, DOS, on a 200-person conceptual camp design that incorporates design improvements for women in our missions. Also, With generous support from Canada, DPO has initiated a project to gain a better understanding of the barriers faced by uniformed women peacekeepers in our missions. This project, which I believe is very important, will be critical for us to be able to better understand and address those barriers. Despite the good progress, as I said, we need to do more to maintain these fragile gains and continue supporting women's meaningful participation in peace operation. This will only be possible through engagement and partnership with troop and police contributing countries and other member states. We must therefore continue working together and work even harder on this shared commitment. The upcoming Peacekeeping Ministerial meeting in Seoul in December presents an opportunity for member states to generate pledges that help build capacities for troop and police contributing countries, which can be targeted towards increasing women's participation. And you can count on us to focus on this objective as we will be moving forward towards this important ministerial meeting. Further, DPO's light coordination mechanism and the Triangular Partnership Project can also be leveraged to support this important agenda. So in closing, let me express my deep appreciation again to the Government of Canada and to all supporting member states, to our partners in the UN Secretariat for their steadfast contributions, commitment, and partnership for peacekeeping. And of course, our gratitude belongs to all peacekeepers who serve in our peace operations around the world, especially in these trying times, and who are role models for women and men in host communities and beyond. And as I say, I know we have two distinguished peacekeepers on the panel today, and I really look forward to learning more about their insights and experiences so that we can jointly take this agenda forward. Thank you for your attention.
Great. Yoshi Lacroix, thank you so much for your comments and for kicking off this conversation, for highlighting for us the critical importance of diversity to peace operations, and for sharing those numbers. I think it's really important that we know where we are, where we've come from, and where we still need to go in order to achieve this shared goal that you highlighted. I would now like to turn over to the Executive Director of UN Women. Of course, UN Women is organizing this event today. They serve as the Secretariat for the Elsie Initiative Fund and have a critical role for coordinating on women, peace and security in the UN system. So to officially launch the second programming round of the Elsie Initiative Fund, I'd like to hand over to Undersecretary General of UN Women, Ms. Mlambo-Ngcuka. Over to you, USG.
Thank you, Nala. Excellency, Mark Bruno, my colleague, USG Lacroix, my partner in peace, not in crime. Ministers, excellencies, peacemakers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and it's a pleasure to be with you. And of course, good afternoon and good evening, depending where you are. I also want to start by acknowledging and thanking Canada for helping to organize us today, but also for the enormous support that they have given to this initiative. This year in March, we hosted the Generation Equality Forum in Mexico, which is a forum that is supporting the acceleration of the implementation of the Beijing Platform for Action, accelerating the implementation of SDGs, the acceleration of the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, as well as responding now to the pandemic. One of the key outcomes of Generation Equality was a strong call for a compact on women, peace and security and humanitarian action. And in that call, there was also a critical message, which is calling for accountability and leadership at all levels that supports the progress that we want to see for women in the sector. There was also a call for acceleration of full, equal, and meaningful participation of women in security institutions, highlighting the fact that this is essential in order to make sure that these institutions are true representatives of the people they serve, and they are able to respond appropriately in a manner that assists all of the population they are serving. Last month also, we launched the Action for Peacekeeping Plus. It was noted that women's participation in political process in numerous settings has expanded. In particular, the fact that women now are 41% of all civilian senior leadership. That has been also mentioned by both Nala and my colleague Lacroix. However, while the majority of the Ununiform Gender Parity Strategy 2020 target has been surpassed, targets for the proportion of women in military contingents still lags behind considerably. The pace of change in women's representation in national military globally remains too slow. So now we know that progress is possible because we have seen it in one part of our work. I think this should inspire us and fire us to also push further in all other areas that are still lagging behind. Because we cannot wait for 30 years, for instance, for gender parity to be reached by military troops. It is estimated that 12 years, it will take 12 years for formed police units to reach parity, 8 years for individual police officers, and 7 years for military observers and staff officers. So with the good experience that we have, we should be able to condense these statistics and move even quicker. There are options that we have: the use of innovative, data-driven and tech-enabled peacekeeping that systematically captures disaggregated data across ranks and leadership positions to enable evidence-based reporting and accountability. Because indeed, when we don't have data, sometimes we do not know what it is that we are trying to fix. The Elsie Initiative, therefore, is an innovative mechanism designed to support and incentivize UN member states' efforts to increase uniformed women's participation in UN peace operations. Following the fund's launch in March 2019, which was a wonderful day, I'm glad that we are now at this phase. It is therefore my pleasure to formally announce and congratulate the Elsie Initiative Fund's first 5 recipients, who are, and they are Liberia, Mexico, Niger, I think you should clap, Senegal, and Sierra Leone. The 5 are Liberia, Mexico, Niger, Senegal, and Sierra Leone. I commend the commitment of these countries because they've undertaken an in-depth analysis of the multiple barriers to uniform women's participation in peace operations within the contexts they work. They have looked at social-cultural gender norms. They've looked at criteria for deployment that excludes disproportionate numbers of women. They've also looked at how women self-select out of deployment because of the pressure that comes with family obligations. And this knowledge is knowledge that is also to be shared with other member states so that we begin to create a body of knowledge that we can all tap into. So today we are launching this, believing that the leaders that are here, who are ministers and other leaders of the UN, will provide the authentic leadership that is needed for success to be achieved. We want to make sure, for instance, that there's commitment to zero tolerance to sexual harassment and sexual exploitation and abuse, and to bring perpetrators to justice. I'm proud to announce that the launch of the second program for the Elsie Fund creates conditions that I hope will inspire more countries to want to be part of this group of countries that I have announced. We invite troop and police contributing countries to submit letters of interest to the Elsie Initiative Fund Secretariats by 31st of July. And you will be able to assist you, and will provide packages and guidelines that are briefing you and taking you step by step. There's a technical briefing that is planned for the 18th of May by the Elsie Secretariat, which is at UN Women. And there will also be webinars and tutorials in English and French, which will provide you with further details. Information is also available in the Elsie Initiative Fund website. This is a wonderful day. We hope that there'll be many more days to come when we'll be announcing more countries who are becoming parts of this group of countries that are taking this important work forward. I thank you, and I congratulate also our technical committee for their subject matter expertise from DPO, member states, academic institution, and civil society who have helped us to get to this point. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that, for formally launching the second programming round, for sharing the details on how member states can access that second round, and for also highlighting and reminding us of the recipients of the first round of programming. And we will now have the opportunity to hear from three of those countries. We will shortly hear from the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Liberia. We have a video from the Minister of Armed Forces for Senegal. But to kick things off, I would like to now turn to the Director General in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Mexico, Dr. Eduardo Jaramillo, to hear Mexico's experience as a first round of programming recipient of the Elsie Initiative Fund. Could you share with us a little bit about what has your experience been with the initiative? What will this project support you on specifically, and how will it help you to bring more women into the military and police in Mexico? Dr. Jaramillo, over to you.
Muchas gracias. Saludo con afecto al Ministro de Asuntos Exteriores de Liberia y al Ministro de Fuerzas Armadas de Senegal, igualmente a la señora Lucile y al señor Jean-Pierre Lacroix. Quiero en primer lugar aprovechar la oportunidad para agradecer al Fondo de la Iniciativa Elsie por apoyar el proyecto presentado por México para llevar a cabo una evaluación de las barreras que impiden la participación de las mujeres uniformadas en las operaciones de paz. Y contestando a tu pregunta, la decisión de participar en el fondo de la iniciativa Elsie se basa en los compromisos asumidos por el Gobierno de México en la pasada conferencia ministerial sobre mantenimiento de la paz, celebrada en Nueva York en marzo del 2019, y esto con el fin de incrementar el número de mujeres uniformadas en las operaciones de paz de la ONU. Asimismo, les comparto que el primer plan de acción de México para el seguimiento de la resolución 1325 sobre mujeres, paz y seguridad, el cual fue dado a conocer en enero de este año, tiene entre sus líneas de acción incentivar la capacitación y participación significativa de mujeres uniformadas, militares y policiales en las operaciones de paz. El plan de acción nos permite articular mejor las estrategias de capacitación y entrenamiento de mujeres uniformadas que desarrollen las Fuerzas Armadas y la Policía de México, aprovechando los cursos para despliegue que imparte el Centro de Entrenamiento Conjunto para las Operaciones de Paz en México, así como otros esfuerzos de capacitación en las diversas instituciones. Desde que México reinició su participación en las operaciones de paz de la ONU en 2015, se ha incrementado gradualmente el despliegue de mujeres uniformadas para desempeñar funciones de observación internacional, observación militar o como oficiales de Estado Mayor en 6 operaciones de paz. Actualmente, cerca del 30% del personal desplegado por México en las operaciones de la paz son mujeres. No obstante, somos conscientes que aún tenemos mucho por avanzar en el área. El plan de participación de México en las operaciones de paz busca el incremento consistente de más mujeres uniformadas para alcanzar un 40% o quizá más del personal mexicano que participa en dichas operaciones.
Wonderful, Dr. Jaramillo, thank you very much for sharing that experience and how the Elsie Initiative is benefiting in Mexico. I would now like to turn to His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister D. Maxwell Sakamea Sr. from Liberia. And Minister, I'd like to ask you a similar question. How is the Liberia project contributing to bringing more women into the military in Liberia? Over to you, Minister.
Good afternoon. Minister Kimaya, I sent a message to the chat, couldn't be here due to present national engagements, and he has asked me to speak on his behalf and on behalf of the government of Liberia.
Thank you.
To answer your question, how will Liberia project contribute to bringing more women into the military? First of all, we express our thanks for being on this panel. And to answer that, funding has been a major challenge in trying to recruit more women in the armed forces of Liberia. We're glad that Liberia is a recipient of the Elsie Initiative Fund of Canada for the support of building the capacity of uniformed women peacekeepers. This project will assess barriers to uniformed women in United Nations peace operations using the measuring opportunities for women in peace operations, barrier assessment methodology. This project will provide support for the efforts mentioned earlier to increase the recruitment of women in the military. The Armed Forces of Liberia intends to recruit about 250 women in the military by 2022 and form a gender-strong unit, adequately trained and equipped for deployment in peacekeeping missions. This will enhance the chances of deploying more uniformed women in peacekeeping missions for pertinent roles such as information gathering and patrols, child protection, refugee and IDPs administrations, supporting victims of sexual and gender-based violence, amongst others. The project will also provide support to the Liberian Armed Forces Training Command, which provides basic and essential training required to serve in the United Nations through the hiring and provision of resource persons, amongst others.
Wonderful, Deputy Minister. Thank you so much for sharing that with us and for being here with us today. It's much appreciated. I would now like to hand over to, we have a video from the Minister of Armed Forces of Senegal, and we pose the same question to Minister Kaba about how the Elsie Initiative will be benefiting them in increasing the number of women in their, that they will then be deploying to UN peace operations.
Je suis Maître Sidiki Kaba, ministre des Forces armées du Sénégal. Je me réjouis de participer à la réunion ministérielle en mode virtuel de l'initiative Elsie, prévue ce jour 28 2021. Je voudrais féliciter le Fonds pour avoir choisi le Sénégal. C'est le premier pays à avoir bénéficié, avec la validation des projets de la gendarmerie et de la police, dans le cadre de mon intervention, j'ai une série de questions et différents axes de cette intervention. La première que je voudrais me poser, quelles sont les mesures que le ministère des Forces armées garantit et maintenir l'égalité des sexes? À cette réponse, je voudrais dire, dans la perspective d'atteindre les objectifs de développement durable à l'horizon 2030, notamment le PDD 5, 10, en droite ligne avec le plan Sénégal émergent PSE, le Sénégal s'est engagé fortement dans la promotion des droits humains inscrit dans sa constitution. Ainsi, il existe un cadre juridique mis en place pour garantir l'égalité des sexes. Et il est aussi signataire de plusieurs instruments juridiques internationaux et nationaux, dont la Convention sur l'élimination de toutes les formes de discrimination à l'égard des femmes. La résolution 1325 du CSNI, le protocole de Maputo et la déclaration solennelle sur l'équité et l'égalité de genre en Afrique. Le Sénégal, à travers sa stratégie nationale pour l'égalité de genre 2016-2026, vise à intégrer l'égalité de genre dans les priorités de développement du pays figurant dans le PSE. Dans ce contexte, les ministères des Forces armées et de l'Intérieur ont fait de l'institutionnalisation du genre une obligation à tous les niveaux, ce qui a conduit à la genre du MFA du ministère des Forces armées en 2000. La stratégie genre sera mise en place au niveau du ministère de l'Intérieur et des institutions rattachées aux différents ministères. Ça n'est suivi la création des divisions genre au niveau du haut commandement de la gendarmerie et de l'état-major général des armées. La deuxième question que nous devons nous poser est comment ce projet aidera-t-il notre ministère à faire action? Dans ce projet, il est prévu plusieurs activités visant toutes à améliorer la participation des femmes dans les EMP et l'augmentation de l'effectif dans les EMP qu'au plan national. Le projet va contribuer à une augmentation continue personnel féminin à déployer à travers l'adoption d'une politique d'intégration du genre de projets et programmes. Pour la police, elle s'appuiera sur une stratégie de consécration effective de l'équité des genres dans les activités, aussi bien au niveau des programmes propres à la police que dans le cadre de nos partenariats. Cette stratégie se traduira également par un plaidoyer pour l'institutionnalisation du système de quotas de recrutement de 30% de femmes à chaque concours de police, un système de quotas de 30% de femmes dans tous les offres de renforcement de capacité et système de quotas de 30% de femmes à toutes les formations par les Nations Unies sur le maintien de la paix et les centres régionaux de formation pour les OMP. L'élaboration et la mise en œuvre d'un plan de formation des femmes pour le développement de leur leadership dans la police et leur pleine participation aux EMP. Ce système de quotas sera pérennisé afin de permettre une forte intégration des femmes. Elle se basera sur la sensibilisation et la participation des femmes afin d'atteindre 10% des femmes pour chaque fonction de gendarme recrutée et la constitution de FFU fortement paritaire avec 16% en 2021, 17% en 2022 et 18% projet contribuera à la qualification d'un personnel féminin de la gendarmerie aux standards régionaux et internationaux et à participer aux missions de maintien de la paix, évaluation des obstacles, formation, sensibilisation et mise en place d'une crèche. L'élaboration d'une politique du genre dans la gendarmerie sera ainsi mise en place basant sur la stratégie sectorielle du genre du ministère des Forces armées, meilleure prise en compte des femmes. La troisième question que nous allons nous poser est la suivante. Comment cela nous permettra-t-il d'assurer une augmentation durable du nombre de femmes déployées dans les opérations? Pour atteindre les objectifs de ce projet, la réalisation nécessitera une stratégie complète d'intégration du genre pour garantir leur implication dans tous les aspects de la gestion du secteur de la défense, des opérations, des activités prévues, d'adopter de façon globale des mesures et des stratégies privilégiant l'équité, l'égalité, genre, et de valoriser le potentiel féminin dans tout le processus. En d'autres termes, la mise en œuvre des activités a transformé progressivement les mentalités et normes sociales qui constituent notre groupe. Cette stratégie implique les parties prenantes, en l'occurrence, les décideurs accent particulier sur la question du genre, à la prise de décisions structurellement, ainsi que leur application à la planification des actes. De l'engagement de toutes les parties prenantes, combattre les stéréotypes de genre qui déterminent les différents obstacles de la participation des femmes aux EMP d'une part et de leur faible représentation dans le secteur de la gendarmerie et de la police au niveau national d'autre part pour parvenir à une opérationnalisation de stratégie de résultats escomptés. La quatrième question, ce sont les solutions innovantes qui ont fonctionné à travers notre expérience pour surmonter les obstacles au développement de femmes dans les opérations de maintien de paix. Depuis plus de 20 ans d'intégration des femmes dans les rangs des FDS au Sénégal, la participation des femmes dans les opérations de maintien de paix des Nations Unies. Parmi les solutions innovantes, la participation aux enquêtes avec les CADS pour ressortir les réelles des femmes, la mise en place des divisions genre, des engagements et politiques genre, les formations pour un leadership féminin, l'entretien avant déploiement pour la prise en compte des besoins des femmes, la création de crèches pour accroître leur disponibilité. Les actions menées au niveau international, régional et national en faveur de la promotion des femmes démontrent qu'aucune solution durable aux problèmes sociaux, économiques et politiques plus pressants de la société ne peut être sans la pleine participation, la pleine autonomisation des femmes du monde entier et que le développement durable ne pourra se faire sans la participation pleine et entière des hommes et des femmes dans tous les domaines de la vie sociale, celui de la paix. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And let me thank all of the panelists, our member state panelists who shared with us the way in which this fund is supporting them to increase the number of women in military and police. We heard that they will, with the funds, My apologies, I appear to have been on mute. Thank you very much to all of the panelists for sharing with us the details on how the fund will be supporting them to increase the number of women in police and military who are then ready for deployment to UN peace operations. We heard that some of the funds will go towards barrier assessments, which is particularly critical to look at what are the barriers to women's inclusion and participation. We also heard about the setting of targets and the creation of gender strong units, which I think is a particular innovation of the Elsie Initiative Fund, and great to hear the way in which the first round of programming has already impacted in these countries. I would now like to turn to the second part of our panel discussion, and one that I'm particularly excited to hear from, which is to hear from two female peacekeepers. The first, we have a video from Lieutenant Colonel Aishatu Usmani Isaac. She was a gender advocate, gender award winner in 2016 from Niger, and we will be hearing a brief video from her.
Je suis le lieutenant-colonel Isaac Ousmane Chateau. Je suis nigérienne, j'appartiens aux forces armées nigériennes. J'ai été désignée dans le cadre de la mission des Nations Unies multidimensionnelle intégrée pour la stabilisation au Mali dans les années 2014. Et c'était plutôt une désignation chez nous qui me faisait tomber sur la MINUSMA. Le particulier était dû au fait qu'à l'époque, entre 2013 et 2014, je tombais dans une mission qui faisait partie des missions délicates et dangereuses, et dans une partie du territoire pas la moindre. Car Gao était pris comme le nord, mais géographiquement réparti sur la coupe du secteur est. Et les facteurs de motivation étaient beaucoup plus dus au fait qu'il fallait relever le défi, parce que c'était la première fois qu'on désignait un staff féminin. Et par la suite, l'envie de connaître et d'avoir cette expérience était aussi à la base de pouvoir assurer cette mission. En ce sens, par rapport à ce déploiement, deux types d'obstacles peuvent être à l'ordre du jour me concernant. C'est d'abord, étant donné que c'était dans un contexte très difficile, les considérations socio-culturelles fusaient de tous les côtés, au point où des questions de type comment tu peux laisser mari et enfant pour t'engager dans une mission pareille. Et pour cela, il faut beaucoup démontrer que cela fait partie de notre première mission en tant que forces armées, et aussi profiter, sensibiliser les gens par rapport à cette volonté, cet engagement à pouvoir accomplir la mission en tant que forces armées. Un autre obstacle, c'était aussi la perception que pourrait avoir le chef par rapport à l'accomplissement de la mission lorsqu'on fut désigné. Et pour cela, il faut être serein, montrer l'engagement à chaque fois que le chef solliciterait un échange par rapport à cette mission, être serein, montrer l'engagement par rapport à la mission à laquelle on a été désigné pour. Alors, je qualifierais aujourd'hui cette mission d'une belle expérience. Et un des points marquants était d'apprendre à s'imposer dans un milieu mixte et multiculturel, car vous le savez, toutes les cultures ont une perception par rapport à la femme. Et en guise d'anecdote, je me rappelais quand j'étais arrivée à la MINUSMA, on disait que les femmes ne devraient pas prendre une permanence. Là, on s'est battu, et puis finalement, j'ai toujours fait mes permanences au même titre que les hommes. Et cela a été un point important car j'ai gagné en expérience. Avant notre arrivée, il y avait eu des difficultés, disons, des difficultés pour faire aboutir les projets de Quick Impact Project, les projets à impact rapide. Et quand je suis arrivée, on a réalisé, je pense, beaucoup plus de projets à impact rapide parce que j'étais déployée en tant qu'officier CIMIC, Civil Militaire Corporation, ou activité civilo-militaire. On a réalisé beaucoup d'activités de projets à impact rapide qui peuvent aller de la réhabilitation de l'école à la réhabilitation des radios rurales au profit des communautés, et en partant aussi la réalisation des moulins au profit des femmes dans certaines localités, prise en compte et l'établissement d'une adduction d'eau et de pluie dans certaines localités et la réhabilitation des maisons des anciens combattants, pour ne citer que cela. Alors cela a été très capital et a joué beaucoup de l'acceptation et même dans la considération de la mission et en général et pour moi en tant que femme. Et pour finir, un des points importants que je peux retenir, c'est que dans des missions et des équipes mixtes, il faut être une grande travailleuse, il faut être diplomate, il faut être persévérante, être aussi sévère, dure si la situation s'impose. Mon pays aujourd'hui, d'une manière générale, et mon armée en particulier, a valorisé sa position au sein des pays contributeurs du tout du fait que nous avions obtenu le premier prix militaire mondial des missions de paix pour la défense de l'égalité des sexes en 2016. Puis le Niger a été honoré et a eu, disons, l'honneur de sélectionner en portant la candidature d'un personnel féminin en uniforme pour le prix International Women of Courage en 2017 qui a été décerné par le département d'État américain. Et aujourd'hui, le Niger et son armée bénéficient de l'initiative.
Apologies, colleagues. I know that the last two videos have been a little bit bumpy and difficult to hear. UN Women has assured us that they will be uploading these videos to their website after this event so that we can also go back and hear them in their fullness there. But we did hear from Lieutenant Colonel her experiences of deployment and I think also the impact that it had for her and for her country when she was awarded with the award in 2016. So that wraps up our panel discussion, and of course it was great to hear, as I said, from the member states who received the first round of programming and to hear from the female peacekeepers themselves. We would now like to turn to a number of member states who will be making interventions in support of the fund. And the first is His Excellency, the Honourable Mitch Fifield from Australia. Ambassador Fifield, over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Nala, Excellencies, colleagues, friends. It's great to have the opportunity to speak with you today to help launch the second programming round of the Elsie Initiative Fund. And can I say our Foreign Minister pays very close attention to this fund. She's also our Minister for Women and she is also a former Minister for Defence. So I'll be reporting back to her, rest assured. I firstly want to recognise Canada, the other donors and UN Women for their great leadership in making the fund a reality. But most importantly, I want to acknowledge our newest partners and initial recipients of the Elsie Initiative Fund, Senegal, Liberia, Mexico, Sierra Leone and Niger. We thank you very much for leading the way. Colleagues, last year, Australia joined the international community as we marked the 20th anniversary of the WPS agenda. We celebrated the many gains we've made, including the clear evidence base that women's participation makes peace processes more sustainable. But despite the gains, progress has been uneven and in some areas far too slow. Despite overwhelming evidence that the full, equal and meaningful participation of women is essential to more effective peacekeeping, we've struggled collectively to increase the number of women deployed. We also know that almost 70% of peace processes do not include women as mediators or signatories. This failing does undermine efforts to deliver mandates to sustain peace. In a peacekeeping context, the Uniform Gender Parity Strategy has been an important catalyst for change, and the latest data shows that women represent 7% of all uniformed personnel deployed. Although this number is still far too low, it's important to recognise the incremental progress that is being made. The Elsie Initiative does promise to be a game changer for the participation of uniformed women in peacekeeping, and that's why Australia is just so proud to support the fund. We made an inaugural contribution of over $1 million in 2020, and we hope to deepen this partnership in the coming years. The fund is designed differently to previous initiatives. It focuses on identifying barriers to women's participation at the national level. We know that one of the main reasons that so few women are deployed in peacekeeping is that women are disproportionately underrepresented in military and police forces around the world. While pledges and targets are critical, they're important, it's only through action, it's only through determination that real change is realised. And one of the good things, the Elsie Initiative, through flexible funding, is able to provide the tools and the resources needed to drive systemic and lasting change. And as the fund continues to mature, we look forward to the development of a knowledge base of best practice to remove barriers to women's engagement, to pave the way for gender parity. Australia's support for the initiative is a natural extension of our commitment as a global champion of the women, peace and security agenda. And Australia recently, I'm pleased to say, renewed this commitment with the launch of our second National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. Our second NAP builds on existing efforts to protect and promote the human rights of all women and girls, and increase the full and equal participation of women in peace and security processes, which includes UN peace operations. From our own experience, we've seen firsthand the importance of leadership that draws from the widest possible talent pool. There are important gains to be made in promoting women candidates for roles in peace and security at all levels. And Australia is very proud of our role in supporting candidates such as Major General Cheryl Pearce, who recently completed her tenure in Cyprus, only the second woman to serve as a UN force commander. Also pleased to say that Australia is on track to meet UN gender parity targets. Currently, 17% of our deployed peacekeepers are women. But like so many others, we too face challenges in implementing a culture and workplace where women can thrive. Too often, women can be overlooked or fail to meet traditional requirements for deployment that have been normalised over years of male-only peacekeeping. We're working closely with our partners, including ASEAN, to address this gap and promote equal access to deployment opportunities through training for women staff officers. We also prioritise gender mainstreaming across our police and military forces, and we've trained over 290 men and women as gender advisors for deployment on military and humanitarian operations. Colleagues, as we work together to make peacekeeping more effective, it's essential that we accelerate women's meaningful participation in all categories and at all levels. Australia looks forward to continuing our partnership with the Elsie Initiative. We hope the pool of participants grows, that it diversifies during this second programming round. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Ambassador, thank you so much, and for highlighting that this is a fund that is designed differently, as you said, to really support concrete action and change, and it is indeed a game changer. I have to apologize that I was so excited to hear your commitment and pledge for the fund that I actually jumped right over one of the highlights of our day today, which is to hear from our second woman peacekeeper, Assistant Superintendent Doreen Malambo from Zambia. And of course, Doreen was awarded the UN Women Police Officer of the Year in 2020. And we will now be hearing from Ms. Malambo. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone from South Sudan, and good morning in New York. I'm Assistant Superintendent Doreen Mazuba Malambo from the Zambia Police Service, serving in the United Nations mission in South Sudan. and the Woman Police Officer of the year 2020. Coming to my side, I got motivated to join the Zambia Police Service because I wanted to ensure that the voiceless had a voice. Considering the injustices which are going on in the communities or societies, I saw it fit as to be a law enforcement officer so that I could bring change not only to Zambia, but also to the African region and the world as a whole through the United Nations peacekeeping. I remember very well when I was young, my father, who happened to be a police officer, he had served in the United Nations mission in Angola. And he used to tell us stories on how the children, women really suffered during the crisis in that country. And the role of the peacekeepers, how they managed to help the groups which were at risk, especially the women and children. This made me to start aspiring to be useful to others and be part of the change agents in society when I grew up. Basically, I would say in my 12 years of service under the Zambia Police Service, assisting women and children in the victim support unit as an officer in charge, coupled with my studies in social work, exposed me more to the United Nations goals for peace and security and the issues of equality. However, in 2007, I met my role model, a senior female police officer, Commissioner Joyce Kasosa, who is currently the ambassador for Zambia in Kenya. She explained to me on how she experienced the environment in the peacekeeping mission. Also, she explained the processes of which one should undergo to qualify for deployment in the peacekeeping mission. She encouraged me also to take up a challenge, and I saw it very important for me to serve in peacekeeping operations one day, to have a meaningful personal experience as well as to be part of the change agent I wanted to be, and then to send the voice also to the voiceless and deal with the injustices in the society. Despite that, I faced a lot of obstacles because it was difficult for me to access information on how I could be part of the peacekeepers. At that time, information tended to circulate more on the part of the male officers other than the female officers. But I strived to actually engage the male officers to consult on how I could do, how I could be part of the peacekeepers, especially those who had taken part in the peacekeeping missions in my country. And then I remained focused despite getting a lot of mixed information from the male officers, because some of them, they were like, it is not easy for a woman to participate in peacekeeping mission. It is a hard situation. But for me, I started remembering what Madame Joyce Kasosa told me about her experience, and I managed to participate in the SAT assessment for service in the peacekeeping mission. And you know, it really inspired me, hearing especially from a female officer who had already served in the peacekeeping mission. That's how I managed, because at that time she explained even the criteria on how I could go about so that I qualify to be part of the peacekeepers. And one of the issues which I undertook was to emphasize on how I could drive a vehicle, especially the 4x4s vehicle, which are recommended by the UN. And I pushed myself to a driving school. And when the Zambia police advertised for those who were interested to undertake or to undergo the selection process for assessment for peacekeeping, for assessment for mission service and peacekeeping, I applied and went through the interviews and passed the interview, and later on I was deployed in Liberia. That was my first peacekeeping mission I went to. And coming to the other challenges which I happened to face is how to get into leadership or decision-making position as a police officer in a professional post. This made me to inquire more about how I can do it or how other female officers can do it. But you find that the problem or the challenge which we are still facing even up to now is that most females worldwide, they are lower ranked, and then the posts which are advertised, they are tagged with certain ranks. For instance, they start with the superintendent and above. So you'd find that even if I'm somebody who is experienced for that particular job and I have the skills which are actually called for to meet the criteria, it is difficult because of my rank, and most women are demoralized with that. And the experiences which I saw in the mission, especially I'll start with Liberia, where I started from. In Liberia, I found that it wasn't very easy sometimes for the community also to access information from the police officers for their safety and peace. And this, I'll give an example. Like one time when I was under the Women and Children Protection, because I was a team leader, we went for collocation in one of the team sites or the post. And I came across a female deaf who was accompanied by other deaf people complaining of a case of assault. And it was difficult for the police officers at that time to understand what these people were trying to report due to the language barrier. And being one of the officers from Zambia who was trained in sign language interpretation and communication skills, I chipped in to help my fellow officers, that is the Liberian National Police. We took a statement and the case was processed before the court. And this resulted in the positive approach by the Liberian National Police to ensure that there was that inclusivity of other members of the society. And we started raising awareness to the members of the society, especially targeting the people living with a disability to enhance their security and for the whole community to prevent crime. So it was something which was interesting, touchy, and something which we need to do as peacekeepers. And then in 2016, I was deployed in South Sudan as a joint integrated police trainer to integrate the officers from the opposition faction as well as those from the government. And being a trainer, we managed to train at least with my colleagues, of course, 1,200 South Sudanese national police from both parties, that is the government and the opposition faction. This followed with the post-training and advisory program. And when we were conducting this post-training and advisory program, my experience was something very, very unique in such a way that I expected to find female officers doing their substantive tasks, which they were trained for. But to my surprise or to my shock, some of the women were actually given some support service tasks, and they were not doing the actual job which they were trained to. So I engaged the commanders in some of the police divisions where I observed that situation, and I tried to educate them that they are part of the UN, and the UN calls for women to participate fully in the activities of policing. So it wasn't something which was difficult because of them understanding that South Sudan is part of the United Nations member states. And then they had to restructure their activities and deployed all the female officers in the respective substantive units or departments where they are now serving, making them happy. They are happy, they are motivated, and they are serving with it. Their service is diligently accepted or appreciated. I would say one of the significant activities of the female peacekeepers so far, like here in South Sudan, is the establishment of the Women Network. We established the Women Network, in which I happened to be the first chair lady when we launched the Women Network in 2017. And this one, it is meant to empower our fellow women, both within our UN police as well as our host police, the South Sudan National Police, to increase their potential, their full potential in professionalism and how to approach issues which are affecting their communities. And
Assistant Superintendent, my apologies. I'm going to intervene there. I know that we're running out of time, but let me just first congratulate you on your award from last year, and really thank you for being such an inspirational change agent. You really shared with us here today what motivated you in terms of your history, the inspiration from other women who have served, and no doubt that is the inspiration that you are now providing to other women. You also highlighted some of the obstacles that you encountered. And I know that many of these access to information, skills, rank are really those that the fund is focused on to ensure that more women like you can serve in peacekeeping going forward. So thank you very much for your intervention this morning. I am now going to, thank you. I'm now going to turn back to our member state interventions and over to the ambassador for the Netherlands, Ms. Joka Brandt.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Nala. And it is indeed a pleasure and an honor to speak after Doreen, who is, as you said, a true role model and inspiration for our cause. Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, let me also join Mitch in thanking UN Women, partner countries and donors for leading the way and taking us to where we are now. And I'm pleased that previous speakers already confirmed that we are no longer debating why more women should be involved in peace operations, but how. Besides the fundamental principle that women should be equally and meaningfully represented in matters pertaining to peace and security, we also know from experience that women's inclusion and participation enhances the overall effectiveness of missions. The second programming round of the Elsie Fund will enable the development of innovative projects that help dispel myths that still exist about female peacekeepers, change current deployment criteria, and contribute to the concrete action and change on the ground that we need. I'd like to make 3 brief points. First, we need to bring down the barriers to equal participation, both at home and in mission. Tools that have been developed with the help of the Elsie Initiative, such as measuring opportunities for women in peace operations methodology, will assist in further identifying these barriers and in developing targeted policies in response. And I'd like to congratulate countries already involved in MOIP and encourage others to join. Second, increasing the participation of female uniformed personnel in peace operations remains an important priority for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. In January 2021, we started new WPS programs focusing on enhancing protection against sexual and gender-based violence in conflict, promoting women's leadership in peace and security, and countering harmful gender norms. I also have to acknowledge that at a national level, we need to do better. The Netherlands therefore remains fully committed to the implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1325 through our 4th National Action Plan and a new Ministry of Defense Action Plan 1325. Third, as departing steering committee member and substantial donor, we are happy to reconfirm our strong commitment and support to the Elsie Initiative. In the past years, clear guidance have been developed to improve management and ensure sustainable funding. We welcome the progress made, including towards involving mission-specific expertise and including civil society voices. In conclusion, we are very encouraged by the excellent work by the Elsie Initiative to advance the meaningful participation of women in peacekeeping missions, because we all know that as long as women are underrepresented, these missions will not reach their full potential. I thank you very much.
Wonderful. Ambassador, thank you so much for that and for sharing your commitment with us this morning. We now turn to our last member state intervention, and it will be by video. We have the Right Honorable James Cleverly, the Minister for the Middle East and North Africa for the United Kingdom.
Thank you to our co-host for bringing us all together today and to everyone who has shared their insights. Indeed, thank you to all our Elsie Initiative partners for continuing to support female peacekeepers and particularly Foreign Minister Garneau for Canada's continued leadership. The UK has been committed to the Elsie Initiative since its launch because we believe that deploying more women to peacekeeping missions in all roles and at all levels is vital to improving operational effectiveness. I have seen for myself how women make military teams stronger during my 20 years of service in the UK Reserve Forces. And currently we are seeing how female peacekeepers from the UK are helping the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali to engage with the female population. Our female soldiers, operating in quite a patriarchal society, are helping to ensure we engage with the whole of the community. Their work is also having a long-term positive impact because we know that women and girls in host communities feel empowered by female peacekeepers and that recruitment of women into state security forces increases as a result, helping pave the way to a more sustainable peace. Ensuring the full, equal and meaningful participation of women in peacekeeping is a key strategic objective of the UK's National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. To help realise that goal, the UK has committed an additional £1.2 million to the Elsie Fund this financial year, which is on top of the £3.5 million that we've already given. As a committed supporter of female peacekeepers and as the second largest donor to the fund, I was delighted that the UK joined the steering committee of the Elsie Initiative Fund earlier this month. We look forward to working closely with the permanent members and fellow steering committee member states, Canada, Bangladesh and Ghana. The Secretary-General has set out an ambitious but necessary plan to increase the number of uniformed women in peacekeeping. The UK is fully committed to its target, although we know from experience that meeting them can be a challenge at times, which is why we're working hard to improve. All parts of the UK's armed forces are now open to women, and they have equal opportunity to get involved and to develop the skills and experience needed to become effective peacekeepers. By working together, we can remove the barriers that prevent larger numbers of women from participating in peacekeeping globally. The Elsie Initiative has an important role to play. The UK pledges to work with you all to ensure that we get more blue helmets or more female heads so that we can build a more sustainable peace.
Wonderful. We have now heard a number of interventions to make pledging commitments to the fund going forward. We've also heard from countries that have benefited from the fund so far, and we've heard from some women peacekeepers themselves about their experiences. So all that rests for us to do this morning is to hear our concluding remarks from our co-hosts, the Government of Canada. And of course, as you all know, the Elsie Initiative Fund sits within the broader Elsie Initiative, which has been an initiative of the Government of Canada, who are co-hosting this event today. We're very honored to have with us the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Minister Marc Garneau. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Nala, and good to be with all of you today. Very happy to join you, and although I didn't have the opportunity to participate for the whole hour and a half, I know that it's very important for me personally to join you today. Je suis ravi d'être ici pour appuyer le lancement du deuxième cycle de programmation du Fonds de l'initiative Elsie. Je sais que vous venez d'entendre des voix fortes en faveur de cette initiative. Permettez-moi de remercier ONU Femmes pour l'organisation de la séance d'aujourd'hui et pour avoir accepté d'être le champion de ces fonds. Je tiens également à remercier le département des opérations de paix, dont l'appui à l'accroissement de la participation des femmes en uniforme dans leur mission est essentiel et constant. Canada's feminist foreign policy aims to achieve gender equality, and Canada's National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security makes the participation of uniformed women as military and police peacekeepers one of its key elements. Gender equality in UN peace operations is an important goal in and of itself, but most importantly, women have the right to serve. More women peacekeepers, particularly in leadership roles, also means that communities engage with a more diverse and representative range of peacekeepers. This adds to a mission's legitimacy and its chance of success. It's no coincidence that our roadmap for UN peacekeeping explicitly singles out the role of uniformed women. Nous vivons actuellement une période de mobilisation collective en ce qui concerne le rôle des femmes casque bleu et nous devons le saisir pleinement. Cet élan prometteur est visible dans la résolution 2538 du Conseil de sécurité, la toute première résolution du Conseil consacrée uniquement au rôle des femmes dans les missions de maintien de la paix. Nous constatons aussi des progrès similaires dans le travail du Comité spécial des opérations de maintien de la paix, le C-34. Le département des opérations de la paix a préparé le terrain avec la stratégie sur la parité entre hommes et femmes en uniforme et les objectifs qui y sont contenus. Voilà pourquoi le Canada a lancé l'initiative Elsie pour la participation des femmes aux opérations de la paix. The Elsie Initiative is all about concrete action. Much work has been done to date, including the 2019 launch of the Elsie Initiative Fund in collaboration with the United Nations. The fund supports a wide range of innovation. It helps troop and police contributing countries assess the barriers that women face in security institutions. It allows for project funding to tackle these barriers. It also provides a gender-strong unit premium to military and police-formed units that meet certain gender criteria. These are examples of how the Elsie Initiative Fund promotes innovation and encourages sustainable and transformational change. Mes sincères remerciements au Royaume-Uni, à l'Allemagne, à la Finlande et à l'Australie pour leur contribution au fonds de l'initiative Elsie, ainsi qu'aux Pays-Bas et la Norvège qui s'y sont engagés à contribuer. Je tiens également, excusez-moi une seconde, je tiens également à féliciter le Nigeria, le Libéria, le Mexique, le Sénégal et la Sierra Leone pour avoir été les premiers bénéficiaires du fonds de l'initiative Elsie. Nous vous félicitons pour votre engagement à mettre en œuvre ces projets et nous attendons avec intérêt les résultats. Permettez-moi également de féliciter les lauréats et la surintendante adjointe Doreen Malambo du service de police zambien pour son travail remarquable. Nous sommes également heureux d'avoir pu entendre la militante pour l'égalité des genres pour l'année 2016, lieutenant-colonel Echatou Ousmane Isaac du Niger. Votre service en faveur de la paix et de la sécurité est exemplaire. Je suis certain que votre leadership en inspirera beaucoup d'autres. We're at a turning point in our drive to increase women's participation in peacekeeping. To fully seize that opportunity, the Elsie Initiative Fund needs your support. Your support will help the UN, as well as troop and police contributing countries, meet their deployment goals while increasing prospects for sustainable peace. Collectively, we face a complex, challenging task, but everyone benefits when UN peace operations are more inclusive, and we are working tirelessly to achieve that goal. Thank you very much for your participation today. Thank you.
Minister, thank you so much for your remarks and for the Government of Canada's leadership and role on the Elsie Initiative Fund. Before we conclude, I know that the organizers would like to take one screenshot, a gallery view of all of the presenters this morning. So if I can kindly request everybody to please turn your cameras on, and our organizers will then do a gallery view for us so that we can take a screenshot. Do we have everyone? Sorry, give us just one moment.
Could Assistant Superintendent Doreen Malambo please turn on your camera? Thank you very much. Great, okay, I will now do the screenshot. Everyone smile, please. I'm just capturing a couple of latecomers, so I shall do a couple. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Deb. Let me just conclude by thanking all of our speakers this morning. Thank you to the participants who have joined us, to the organizers, and a special thank you to our interpreters for this session as well. I look forward to hopefully reconvening and hearing from all of you some months from now about the impact that no doubt this second programming round for the Elsie Initiative Fund will have on increasing the number of uniformed women in our UN peace operations. Thank you to all of you again, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.